Ravi, please share your key learnings from your first book, Rivers of Rigveda.
Yeah. So the first book is the Rivers of Rigveda. If I talk about it, it is kind of an anchor to the entire geochronology. Because without writing a book on the Rigveda, I was not able to proceed by writing books on the other books. Like, for example, my first attempt was to write a book on the geography of Mahabharata, but I see that there are certain connections which like goes back into Ramayana era, and there are some other connections that goes back into Mahabharata era. So that is the reason why since I stopped writing the book on the Mahabharata, and I straight away started writing the book on the Rigveda. So, if we focus on the book Rivers of Rigveda, there are certain important insights that are coming in from this book. Of course, there is the foundation of the book are basically the chronological sequencing of the mandalas in the Rigveda. Rigveda have 10 mandalas from 1 to 10, but the numerical sequence is not the chronological sequence. So the first book is the sixth mandala, then comes the third, and then seventh, and then comes the fourth, and then the second, then the first mandala, and then fifth one, and then 8, 9, and 10. So that is how the Rigvedic mandala system is arranged. So as you can see in this map. So this particular mandala chronology is actually as a result of Srikant Talagiri's research. So I am building on that scholarship from Srikant Talagiri. And some of my important findings, which is like standing apart from Talagiri's research, is the kind of presence of Shantanu and Sri Rama towards the 10th mandala. So you can see Shantanu and Devapi are the two major kings mentioned as contemporary to the 10th mandala of the Rigveda. And same 10th mandala have Rama also as a very prominent, mighty Rama as a very prominent king, doing dakshinas and dana dakshinas to the rishis that he is mentioned in the 10th mandala of the Rigveda. And the same Rama you can see in the Valmiki Ramayana after Rama's coronation, and very close later to Sita's separation from Rama. Rama's primary occupation was doing yajnas, and he was donating much wealth to the donating and distributing wealth to the people through yajna. So that aspect of Rama is captured into the Rigveda as Rama as a donor, as a patron king, donating wealth to various rishis like Tanma, Partha, etc. So that is how you have the Rigveda 10th mandala as having a kind of an anchor point for Valmiki Ramayana's chronology. And similarly, Shantanu and Devapi, it is more stronger than Rama is actually mentioned in a single verse, whereas Shantanu and Devapi are mentioned in the entire Sukta in the 10th mandala, where Shantanu is praying for rains in the kingdom of, the Devapi is praying for rains in the kingdom of Shantanu.
Mike, in like a very quick, you can explain it very quickly. Any ancestors of Ishwaku mentioned in the previous mandalas of Rigveda?
Yeah, some of the like indirect mention. For example, the 8th mandala, you have ancestor of Rama, Amshumad, mentioned indirectly to the river name Amshumati. So my theory is that the Amshumati river name come from Amshumad, who migrated from the ancestral Sarayu, that is Saraswati, to eastwards, because the river Saraswati was like reducing its flow because the dryness drying up of Saraswati around somewhere around 2200 BC, when there is a 4.2K event where the global dryness hit all the civilization. So it also hit the IVC, Indus Valley civilization, and that is self same as Rigveda. Rigvedic civilization and Indus Valley are the identical two sides of the same coin. So when the drought, that is 4.2K event, it's a global dryness event, that is 2200 BC, which was the period of the 8th mandala. So that time Sagara's grandson Amshumad shifted from Saraswati, which was actually the Sarayu, the ancestral Sarayu. From there eastwards, he shifted to Yamuna, which have more water because Yamuna is a snow-fed river. So it has more water compared to Saraswati, which was a rain-fed river. And when the rains monsoon failed, the river dried up, and that is how it has happened. And towards the 10th mandala itself have a kind of a chronological span of 200 years from 2100 BC to 1900 BC. So you have Bhagiratha, that is an indirect mention of Bhagiratha, another ancestor of Rama and grandson of Amshumat, is mentioned in the 10th mandala as a very powerful Ikshvaku king. So there are definitely the earlier ancestors of Rama like Amshumat and Bhagiratha indirectly mentioned in the Rigveda in the 8th and 10th mandala. And then straight away Rama is mentioned in the 10th mandala. And all the evidences point to Rama being contemporary to the Shantanu. So the initial discovery is actually happening in my book Rivers of Rigveda, which is strengthened in the subsequent book Geography of Ramayana and Geography of Mahabharata as well. And other discoveries related to this Rigveda. One is an important king named Prasadasyu, who actually is mentioned for the first time in the 7th mandala, which is one of the oldest mandalas. So again, I'll go back to the 6, 3, and 7. These are early Rigvedic mandalas. And in the 6th mandala, you have Divodasa, one of the prominent king, and Bharadwaja as his priest. And 3rd and 7th mandala, you have Sudas, the descendant of Divodasa, as a very prominent king. 2 priests, Vishwamitra for the 3rd mandala and Vasishta for the 7th mandala. They were all contemporary. So 3 and 7, they are contemporary. These 2 mandalas are contemporary mandalas. And towards the 7th mandala, you have contemporary kings of Sudas like Prasadasyu mentioned. So that is another important discovery. Prasadasyu is a early Rigvedic king, because this is a deviation from Talagiri's chronology, where because of some confusion, he has dismissed Prasadasyu as a late Rigvedic or a middle Rigvedic king. But I have corrected it that Prasadasyu is indeed a 7th mandala king. So that is another discovery. And you can actually, I don't dwell into the detail because it requires an entire talk. So some of the highlights, like the entire lineage history of the kings are traced out into various branches, like Parthava branch, which is Iranian branch, Tritsu Bharata branch, which leading to Panchalas, and the other Bharatas, who are leading to Kurus, and branch which is leading to Vishwamitra. And then there are Ikshvaku lineage, that is Mandhada, Purukutsa, and Prasadasyu, like that, and Sharyada lineage, which leads to Heya Janapata in Narmada. So, and then similar Rishi lineage, I analyzed the Rishi lineage also in the book, and very prominent Rishis and their Suktas, etc. And the another important focus of this book is 45 hydronyms. All the river names mentioned in the Rigveda are properly analyzed. And then the map, this some of the hydronyms, the river names are rejected as not being a river name proper. And then you have created a tabulation of all the rivers which are newly discovered in each mandala. And this is actually a secret code of migration, which is like a westward migration from Haryana to Punjab to Sindhu River and beyond into Afghanistan. So that code, secret code, you can actually is encoded into the river, river data inside the Rigveda. And this is another important aspect of this book. And you have the remaining part of the book is actually explanation of the different geographies related, because the oldest places, Manusha related to Manu, and Ilaspada related to Manu's daughter, they are actually very close to river Saraswati and along its tributary Apaya, and they are all part of this Kurukshetra region, which is a rectangular region which is known as Varaprithivya in Rigveda. And later King Kuru, who is a descendant of Samvarana, who participated in the Dasharajana battle as by the name pseudonym Puru, he came back and renamed Varaprithivya as Kurukshetra. So this is another finding I have in the book. And the river Saraswati and Drashadvati is by actually the boundaries of Kurukshetra, that information, etc. And it also discover very some of the important rivers like Haryupya and Yavyavati as very flowing very close to the river Saraswati, and between Yamuna and Saraswati these rivers are flowing in parallel. And Sapta Sindhu region, Kikadas, and some other migration, the migration of Kikadas to Magadha, because they were ancestors to the Magadha royal dynasty. The Matsyas, which is another dynasty, which moved from Yamuna region to Viratanagari, where the Pandavas find them. And the Chedi migration, they were living in a dried up riverbed of Saraswati. Then they moved to the location, the traditional location. And then there are certain merchants like Brabhu who were trading in on the Ganga River. So all this is then Yadava migration, Kushiga migration, that is ending up to the Kaushigi River in Bihar, Kosi River. That is the Kushika is a lineage of Vishwamitra, which they migrated. Then the Kuru Pandava migration from the Kurukshetra to Hastinapura, and then to Indraprastha, which is a subject matter of Mahabharata. They were banished to the Indraprastha. So those kind of thing. And then it has a very clear understanding about the Dasharajana battle and its aftermath, where the ancestor of the Pandavas, the Puru, or otherwise known as Samvarana, migrated to the Sarayu Sindhu region. So this is another discovery, the river Sarayu. I have discovered the river Sarayu as a river to the east, as a tributary to the east of Sindhu River. Again, here Srikant Talagiri have a kind of a misconception and locate it into the Afghanistan, but as a Harirudh River. But this Afghanistan location for Sarayu doesn't match with the data in the Rigveda, because the entire Rigvedic people reached the wavefront of the migration reached only Sindhu River only later. Not when the river Saraswati is encountered, but even much later in because the river Sarayu is encountered in the fourth mandala, but chronologically fifth mandala is later to the fourth mandala. Only in the fifth mandala, these people have migrated further beyond the Sindhu River into the rivers like Kabul River, Kubha, and went to Afghanistan. So his identification of Sarayu in Afghanistan is wrong, and the correct identification of Sarayu is as a tributary of Sindhu, an eastern tributary of Sindhu, and today it is known as Haro. And even the name have a reason, because Sarayu is rendered as Harayu in Avestan text, and the Avestan rendering of Harayu got shortened and become Haro. So there is, without any doubt, we are very clear, the river Sarayu is the Haro River, an eastern tributary of Sindhu. So these people who actually got defeated in the Dasharajana battle, that is Samvarana, who is also nicknamed as Puru, went to live in the Sarayu River and have a connect with Trasadasyu, the king Trasadasyu of the Ikshwaku lineage. And this Samvarana marries Tapati Vaivaswati, an Ikshwaku princess, and their descendant Kuru returned back to Kurukshetra and renamed it as returned back to Varaprati and renamed it as Kurukshetra. And you have the migration.
You have 5 minutes more for the 15.
Okay. That's good enough. So the last part I have to touch upon is the from the Rigveda you can get that the most ancient memory, because many people typically talk the Rigvedic people have no memory of where they were in the ancient past. But at least people who were living in Haryana in the earliest mandalas like 6th and 3rd and 7th, they have a memory of coming from a sea. And I have identified that sea as a Ran of Kutch, or in general the sea around Gujarat. It is also called Dakshina Samudra. So not to be confused with the Kanyakumari and the Indian Ocean to the south of it, because that the Rigvedic people, they have migrated from Gujarat area, Ran of Kutch and the Kathiawad, the sea, Gulf of Cambay, etc. So that is the sea. From there, they have a memory of migrating northwards, and then they settled on the Haryana, like Manu and Ila settled there. That is why Manusha and Ilaspada are there. And then the Manu's brother Ikshwaku generated the Ikshwaku lineage, and it has split into two parts. One went to westward, and that is why we see Satrasadasya, etc., living in Gomati and Sarayu. So there are two, one Gomati and one Sarayu, as river names, tributary river names of Sindhu River. Another eastern branch migrated eastwards, and they are the Amshumat who named Yamuna as Amshumati, and Bhagiratha who named Ganga as Bhagirathi, and then finally Ajadasharada Rama in the Sarayu River. And there are certain corroboration between Rigveda and Ramayana, where the messengers from Ayodhya, they went through Kurujangala. So the name Kurujangala is contemporary to Rama in the Ramayana, which means that the Rama lived later to King Kuru. So that again give you another data point that there is no surprise for seeing Rama in the 10th mandala. He is later to King Kuru like Shantanu, and Shantanu and Rama are contemporaries. So multiple logical pathways, we get the same equation that Rama and Shantanu are contemporaries, and they lived in the 10th during the 10th Mandala period of Rigveda, and they were all both of them were later to King Kuru, because this Kurujangala name is contemporary to Sriram. So this is in effect the crux of Valmiki Ramayana. So there are so many similar collaboration between Rigveda and Ramayana, then Rigveda, Ramayana, and Mahabharata, which we can see, and also Rigveda and Avestan text, Vendirat, where we get the Proto-Iranians lived in the Kurukshetra and Sapta Sindhu, etc. So that they have all these names in the Iranian text. And we get so many people named like Paktas and Phalanas, etc. in the Rigveda. And of course, this particular book have a map for every river. So this is the Kabul River. There is the other rivers in the Kashmir, everything. And it has very clear understanding about the ancestral Sarayu and the two Sarayus in the, like a mirror image, Gomadi and Sarayu, both in the east and west of Saraswati, as tributaries of Ganga and Sindhu on both sides of Saraswati. So bidirectional migration, very clearly mentioned. And many other rivers. So Arjigya, Sushuma, where the Soma plant grow. All these very clearly, and very importantly, Kashmir rivers are mentioned. So every river, around 31 plus unique rivers are described, and including the Samudra. So the Samudra, there are 4 Samudras mentioned in the Rigveda. So that very clearly we can see the Samudra 1, Samudra 2, Samudra 3, Samudra 4, everything. And there are trade relationships we can see in the Rigveda. That is also very clearly we get actually. And the final, their migration to Afghanistan, and the naming of Afghanistan as Ashma Vraja, the mountain covered region, and the river name Ashmanwadi. These are all like finally very clearly Afghanistan is in the focus in the 10th Mandala period.
Just out of curiosity, how did you get all this map?
This is I have created these maps actually.
Oh,
this
okay.
is as part of the making the rivers of Rigveda book. These maps are created. So I have traced out the trade relationships. So Sharama Pani episode, I have actually analyzed it as a trade related activity where the traders, that is the Vaishya community, ultimately come under the leadership of Kshatriyas and Brahmanas. So basically that is what impression we get in the Sharama Pani. So the wealth creators finally came under the dominion of Kshatriyas, that is represented by Indra, and Brahmanas, that is represented by Brihaspati. So that is there towards the 10th mandala, you can get those. And of course, this is maybe if there is a one minute time, some of the researchers say that Rigveda is in 85,000 BC, 25,000 BC. This particular slide is actually an antidote for that, because Rigveda towards the end period, like from the 8th mandala, 9th mandala, 10th mandala, late Rigvedic period, it mentioned desert region, Dhanwa. So it mentioned 3 kinds of deserts. There is Tara desert and Cholistan desert and the Marshy desert, which are formed up towards the late Rigvedic period because of the 4.2 cave and the dryness. So we cannot, like flying a kite, you cannot put the chronology of Rigveda to 75,000 BC, etc. It has to be anchored to the 2200 BC dryness event and the drying up of Saraswati by 1900 BC. And this is a complete consolidation of all the migrations. So you get a very beautiful map of the consolidation. And how the Indus Valley civilization is distributed across the Panchajanas, Puru, Anu, Drihyu, Yadu, Turvasas in the southern side, Anus in the western side, and Purus in the eastern side. So all these are very, very clearly analyzed. And we have compared Rigveda with the kind of material culture, that is Indus Valley Harappan civilization and the oat-colored pottery civilization that has emerged very close to the Kurukshetra war period. So that the Janapadas like Kuru Panjala and Ayodhya, Kashi, Kosala, Kashi are all well represented archaeologically. So our dates, end date of Rigveda at 1900 BC, and subsequently the Shantanu's descendant entering into a Kurukshetra war somewhere in 1793 BC. They are well supported by archaeology. That is another important point I have to mention to the readers of the book. So I think with that, I conclude the presentation, and we look for another talk for another book.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your insights. Yeah, now please go ahead and explain your next 2 books, Geography of Ramayana and Mahabharata.
We will focus on the second book, the Geography of Ramayana. But anybody who have familiarity with the first book will understand that the rivers of Rigveda have set all the initial setup and initial research so that we can have a deep dive into the geography of Ramayana. And as a recap, most importantly, the Sri Rama, the hero of the epic Ramayana, is mentioned in the 10th mandala of the Rigveda. And he is the data in the Rigveda indicate that he is a contemporary to Shantanu of the lunar dynasty. So these two important points we need to understand before delving into the book geography of Ramayana. So I will just start with this through the slides. So this is the book that you can see in Amazon and other portals. Amazon is a primary international distribution portal where it also within India it is also available in Flipkart, Notion Press, etc. And the importance of this book actually it is part of the Aitihasik genre that is geochronology. Of course, we can classify it as history or geography as well, and available in globally in Amazon in India, and then ebook all the formats of the books, Amazon Kindle, Google Play Store, all of the. And this is the primary value of this book compared to any reading of Valmiki Ramayana in isolation. Compared to that, this book actually reads Ramayana comparing it with Mahabharata, and of course comparing it with the Rigveda. So this is the only book which have the comparison of Ramayana with Rigveda and Mahabharata. So that is why this is the uniqueness of this book. And it analyzes 606 sargas and 18,670 slokas of Valmiki Ramayana. So it's a very thorough analysis and the geography maps, and then very lot of comparisons. And this is a very brief summary of the three books. So the Rivers of Rigveda is the first book, and then Geography of Ramayana second, and the third is a Geography of Mahabharata. And the primary subject of the book is the connections, the interconnection between Rigveda and Ramayana, and etc. And of course, the readers are given a recap of the mandala chronology of Rigveda, which you can also go through the video about rivers of Rigveda. You can get that in detail. But most importantly, Shantanu and Rama are mentioned in the 10th mandala of the Rigveda, and Kurukshetra war happened after that, like that. So, and so many Rishi Munis are mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana. Like there is a late Rigvedic Vasishta and late Rigvedic Vishwamitra, late Rigvedic Bharadwaja, Atri, Rama Jamadagni, that is Parashurama. So people will wonder because in the other part of the Rigveda, that early Rigveda also, you have Rishi Munis by name of Vishwamitra and Vasishta. So that is very clear because every Vasishta inside the Rigveda is well documented, because the Sukta number, like the 7th Mandala Vasishta is an ancestor of the 10th Mandala Vasishta. So they are not the same individual, because Vasishta is the name of a lineage name. For example, my surname is Nadumuri. So if I am called Nadumuri, of course you can call me as with that surname, but there will be hundreds and thousands of people with that same surname. Or if somebody is called Malhotra, there can be a very famous Malhotra like Rajiv Malhotra, but there will be so many number of Malhotra. If you say Modi, there will be, maybe people will think Narendra Modi, but there are thousands and thousands of Modi. So similarly, Vasishta is a family name, surname. So you have an early Rigvedic Vasishta who was the priest of Sudas, and an early Rigvedic Vishwamitra, again another priest of Sudas. But you have 10th Mandala, Vasishta and Vishwamitra, who were contemporary to Sri Rama. So you have the complete historicity of Sri Rama in the Valmiki Ramayana established using Rigveda, because there are Rishi Munis by the names Vasishta, Vishwamitra, Atri, Bharadwaja, then Rama, Jamadagni, etc. In the 10th Mandala, they are all contemporary to Rama, and so that Valmiki Ramayana is a historical text. And it happened before Kurukshetra war, so there is no chronological problem like leftist historians talk about, where Rama lived, in our chronology, Rama lived earlier to Pandavas. That is very clear. And then it also shows connecting link between Ramayana and Mahabharata as well. And the basic premise of the research is that the book Itihasas, especially I need to talk about Itihasas compared to Rigveda, it have magical narratives. So everything that is mentioned in the Itihasa may not be 100% historical accounts. So there will be magical narratives, because that is added so that people, this was transmitted orally, oral transmission, the transmission. So if somebody has to listen to it and they need to memorize it, then they need to have interest in the book. So because of that, magical narratives are created. Hanuman taking the mountain, or Sri Krishna lifting the mountain, Hanuman jumping and eating the sun. So these are all basically to create Atishayokti or Albhuta Rasha, so that people are hooked into the narrative, so that they will continuously narrate it from generation to generation. But today in the 21st century, people mistake the magical narrative for factual data. But once you understand that they are different, then things become very easier. And of course, there is philosophy, which is natural. This is like the primary fruit inside the itihasas, which people have to understand so that they can do their dharmic life. And here there is a lineage which basically tells you that there are only limited number of generations between Manu and Parikshit, or there are only limited number of generations from Parikshit to the subsequent generation, like Kshamaka, who is contemporary to Mahapadmananda. So this is basically a question mark for the chronology exaggerators, who basically try to exaggerate the chronology for getting uploads from people who wanted the Indian chronology to be extremely ancient. It just gives them pride and prestige, but real data doesn't support that much big chronology because we have a limited number of generations. So that is one aspect. And of course, when you look at the Shantanu is mentioned in the Rigveda, and in Yajurveda, you can see Shantanu's descendant Jijith Ravi and his son Dhritarashtra mentioned. Samadaveda, of course, it is a small subset of Rigveda. In Atharvaveda, you have Parikshit, that is descendant of Pandavas. So the Vedas more or less have a kind of early start, but they are more or less have a contemporaneous. The later Vedas, like Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharvaveda, have a contemporaneous with Kurukshetra war and the lifetime of Pandavas, etc. And in Mahabharata, you have the descendant of Parikshit, that is Parikshit Janameja, Shatanika, Ashwamedha, mentioned in the as a last king. And in the Puranas, you can see even further Kshamaka, who are all very contemporary to Nandas and Nandas are mentioned actually. So this gives you a chronological span of different texts, like Veda, other Vedas, Mahabharata, Puranas, etc. And some of the older Puranas, very late Puranas, talk about 12th and 15th century temples, etc. So this is a kind of understanding you need to, because sometimes people will get confused with the Puranic data, which talk about Rama establishing a temple for Shiva in Rameshwaram, etc. But when you go with the data's chronology, that is oldest data, such kind of later data disappear, and you get a correct geography. So that is the correct geography is like this. The Rigvedic geography
Just
is like a subset.
just a quick question. So they used to worship Vedic deities. Is there any specific mention of a specific deity is Indra the main god for
Yeah.
Dasaratha and Rama?
Yes. So if you look at the Ramayana and same for Mahabharata,
Just sorry.
the deities worshipped at that time is Indra, and that is why Rama is often compared with Indra. Even though in the later period Rama is considered as a Vaishnava Avatara, but that is not what you see in Valmiki Ramayana. Most number of comparison, like at least 3 times more Rama is compared with Indra than with Vishnu. So it very closely connects the Rama's lifetime with the Rigvedic lifetime.
Just
And
a
if you look
follow-up
at
question. Just a
uh,
follow-up question. You said is exactly right. Even whatever I read in the Ramayana, all mentions, whenever you compare a king, he's always with Indra. Not only Rama, any great king in the Ishwak lineage, the
correct,
main benchmark is Indra. And
right.
is there any temple structure in Balakanda? I think after the marriage, they go to some kind of when they return from the Mithila
Huh.
to Ayodhya,
Yeah,
they go to are there
temples.
any temple structures before
No,
Buddhist?
the temple, the kind of temples that we see around that experience, these all have mostly Gupta era kind of culture. Earlier in the Ramayana and Mahabharata, there are tirtha sthanas. They are open sacred spaces where people visit. So Pandavas are mentioned as visiting a lot of tirtha sthanas, hundreds of them, but there is never mention about any temple where they are visiting. But there were small shrines in palaces, etc. They are called Devatayana and Devatayana. So there are small shrines, but nothing bigger than a room, for example, a room in a house. That is the maximum size. But we don't have elaborate temples, etc., especially outdoor temples. That is in the Gupta era period. So continuing with the narrative, you have the Rigvedic geography as a northwestern part of the India, and Ramayana geography is slightly bigger than that. covering some parts of Odisha and some parts of the north western Maharashtra, and more almost with Narmada River as a southern river. This is the geography contemporary to Sri Rama. But of course, after the Rama's lifetime, Ramayana evolved continuously up to Gupta era, etc., Sunga era, Gupta era. So many other geographies like Kerala, Chola, Pandya, etc., got indebted into Ramayana. And same thing if you look at the contemporary geography of Mahabharata, it is more or less ending by the Mahendra Mountains in the eastern side, Orissa, and Shurparaga, that is western Maharashtra in the eastern side. And of course, after creating this map, I am actually also open to the Potana, that is central South India. Potana and the Ashmaka Janabada also more or less contemporary to the Pandavas. So almost instead of this notch up to here, there is a contemporary to Pandavas. But of course, in the Mahabharata also, subsequently after lifetime of Pandavas, Kerala, Chola, Pandya, and other kingdoms are added. And as I repeat, this is an important information. Kurujangala, an important place, is actually contemporary to the Sri Rama, which we can see in the Ayodhya Kanda of Valmiki Ramayana, which is a very important, it's huge basically, because Kurujangala is a place named after King Kuru, which automatically means that Rama lived after King Kuru. And of course, it adds to the fact that Rama and Shantanu were contemporary to the 10th Mandala, because Shantanu is a direct descendant of Kuru, so he is later to King Kuru. So both Sri Rama and Shantanu, from solar dynasty king and a lunar dynasty king, both were later to King Kuru. That evidence we get from the Ayodhya Kanda of the Ramayana. And then you have the kind of lineage trees explained in the book, and how the Rigvedic geography is slowly extended into the Aitihasic geography. So that explanation. And these are all we can see now, the Vedic Aitihasic geography, how it is expanding into the South India. So all this we can create. Again, like reverse of Rigveda, you have so many maps, like the names of cities exactly matching with the geography. The Girivaraja is a capital city of Magadha, and it is surrounded by mountains. So the Girivaraja name itself means surrounded by mountains. So many such information. Kanyakubja, the Aitihams related to Kanyakubja, Manasasaras, there is a story related to that. Then Kaushiki River, how it is connected with Vishwamitra. Like Vipas and Sududri, two rivers are connected to early Rigvedic Vishwamitra in Rigveda. Similarly, the Ramayana poet connected the late Rigvedic Vishwamitra with Kaushiki River. And then Shagara's domain, and from there the ancestors of Rama migrating from eastwards, like the Amshumat naming Yamuna as Amshumati, Bhagirath naming Ganga as Bhagirathi, and then finally the Rekhu and this Aja Dasharatha ruling at Ayodhya. So this migration also very clear. And then remaining part of the Valmiki Ramayana book have the route maps, like how Rama from Ayodhya to this killing of Tadaka, and then Siddhasrama, asrama of Vamana adopted by Vishwamitra, then going to Vishala Janabada, and then Ahalya, meeting Ahalya Moksha, then go to Mithila. So all these things. And then there is a small sub-narrative about Vishwamitra, and there the Dakshina Kosala and such information, historical Dakshina Kosala king, that some ideas we get from here. Then the Dasharatha's visit to Ayodhya for Rama's marriage. All these are very well explained. And you have a kind of an early visit. Basically, this is a kind of a very rare and unknown to people. Dasharatha and Kaikeyi, they went to Vaijayanta, a city very close to Dandakaranya. And this is where the Dasharatha gives a boon to Kaikeyi, because during a battle. So she knows Dandakaranya, and that is why during the boon, when she was talking about the boon, she was very much have the Dandakaranya in her memory and want Rama to go there. And then this is the travel of Rama towards Chitrakuta. So he goes crossing various rivers, Gomati and Syantiga, Sringiverapura of the Nishada king, and then go to Prayaga and meeting Bharadwaja, and then reaching Chitrakuta. So these maps, all these important maps we actually get. There's a Kurujangala mentioned, Kuru, or everything. And this is how the messengers went to the meet in Bharata, that route map. And here another important to Vishnupada, the two mountains with the name Vishnupada, and they have very interestingly the shape of a foot. So this is an enigma, how the ancient people can understand that this mountain is shaped from a foot. And there, the atheism is that Vishnu's feet, when he made the three strides, that three, no, that is why these impressions are created. It's very enigmatic, and not many people have researched on it. And one of them are in Bihar, Vishnupada near Bihar in Gaya, and another Vishnupada is in the north of the Bias River. So it's very. Then this is the KKR capital, Girivaraja. Again, this is a capital surrounded by mountains. That is the name Girivaraja for the capital. Girivaraja here, no? Similar to Girivaraja of Magadha. So both are Girivaraja. One is Magadha and another is KKR. One is in Bihar, another one is Pakistan. And then the Bharata's return journey to Ayodhya, we can see here how he returned to Ayodhya. Then Bharata himself going to Chitrakuda, and this Chitrakuda, the Chitrakuda's satellite map, and you can see Ram Bharat Milap at all the places here. And you enter into some controversial kind of territories, because up to Chitrakuda, the Valmiki Ramana narrative and whatever traditional belief match perfectly. But after Chitrakuda, southern places, there are certain discrepancies, because tradition have done some exaggeration towards southward. Because Agastya Asrama is exactly in the northern Madhya Pradesh, to the north of this particular mountain. That is the mountain. There is a Malyavat mountain and this is Shuktimat mountain. So to the north of Shuktimat mountain was the Agastya Asrama. It was not south in South India, basically. So from here onwards, the geography have a mismatch with the traditional, because they have exaggerated. Like, for example, the Agastya Asrama to Panchavadi is mentioned as a northern direction, whereas the tradition you have Panchavadi either in Nasik or in Parnashala, but those distance and direction doesn't match with description in Valmiki Ramayana. So we have identified the correct location of Panchavadi based on the exact sloka references, like the 2 yojanas to the northern direction. And then it directly falls into a river named the Tamasa River, which we shockingly discover as the same as Godavari River. So the Godavari of South India is a kind of later adaptation of this river named Godavari from the southern tributary of Ganga. So this is a southern tributary of Ganga.
We have 5 minutes more.
Oh, okay. So this, because of this transfer of river names, the traditional geography is totally confused. So, but there are certain things people will be aware about, because Godavari, that is the South Indian Godavari, is called Dakshina Ganga. That is the reason, because the original Godavari was a Dakshina tributary of Ganga. So that suddenly become Dakshina Ganga. The Godavari is another synonym is Dakshina Ganga. So you have some trace of it. And similarly, Lanka's location, we get, to cut it short, we get it as a Pagatrav Island in the Narmada river mouth. So there are so many explanations, because the ancestors of Ravana, that is Mali and Sumali, married daughters of Narmada, which is a political statement that they settled on Narmada. The biggest enemy of Ravana, that is Kartavirya Arjuna, he was ruling in Mahishmati, again Narmada. So Narmada is multiple times Narmada comes repeating, and all the logical pathways lead to the conclusion that Lanka is in the mouth of Narmada River, and it is a Harappan city port city called Bhagatarao. So that explanation, everything is described here. And the route map from Marijas travel to Dandakaranya, Asrama Mandala, and to abduct Sita, everything match with our geography. So the Ramas travel towards Kishkinda. You can see it in satellite map also, a westward path. Again, it is not southward path, but westward path. So that trace you can see in the satellite map also, like how we discovered Saraswati. You can go into the satellite and you can see the Rama's route map towards traveling towards Rishyamukha in the Kishkinda kingdom. This is the Kishkinda kingdom and all the places related to. Even today, you can see some names Dunthwani, which is named after Bali's enemy Dundubi. So the traces of Ramayana geography you can even see in the modern map of Madhya Pradesh. And there are certain later geography added into these 4 sargas, which confused Nileshok to assume that the Wanderas went to South America, etc. But it is basically very late. This is the data from a late sarga he has taken. And we are that late sargas, which has actually exploration of the Java Islands during Mauryan period, etc., got captured into Valmiki Ramayana. So this is not really contemporary to Rama's lifetime. So that geography, the late geography also we have explained in detail, even cautioning the reader that this is late geography. And then you have see the end of India, that is the real travel of Vanaras. They were tracing the Vindhya mountain, and the end of Vindhya mountain, you will be surprised, is in the Gujarat. So automatically they reach the end of the Vindhya mountain and very close to Lanka, the Pagatrao island. And so again, I have given a lot of reason why the Rama Setu doesn't make any sense, because it's the east-west direction, west to east direction, which doesn't match with the Valmiki Ramana, where the bridge should be north to south. The correct bridge is there in the Lanka, that is in the Narmada river mouth. And there is an intermediate Lanka, also the Ramayana geographers have identified in a later layer of Ramayana, which is in Kanyakumari, basically. And but the much later, the third layer, you have attempts to connect it with Sri Lanka also. But unfortunately, then the mountain should be located in Orissa, Mahendragiri. So this the other the intermediate location, the second layer, you have Mahendragiri in Kanyakumari. But in the third layer, you should take the Mahendragiri as the Orissa Mahendragiri, because then only the south direction become correct. But these two layer, layer 2 and layer 3, they are later additions. The correct layer is the oldest layer, where you have correctly get that it is a bridge from the north of the Narmada river mouth towards Lanka. That we can very clearly get. So kind of descriptions that we have done a lot of studies, and then we have traced the return journey of Rama towards Ayodhya, which again corroborate our earlier analysis of all the locations. And then in the Uttarakhanda, you get a lot of places which are actually related to Ravana's locations. Again, all of them, if you trace, they are all to the north of the Narmada river. And there is some location related to Ravana himself. So this is like location related to Ravana's ancestors. And this is exactly location related to Ravana himself. Only one location, Ashwanagara, is to the south of river Narmada. And this is a marriage alliance of Shurpanaga. Ravana's sister Shurpanaga married a king from the Ashwanagara, which is today's Nagpur. And then this one another place. This is the only two places. There is another Maharaja's location. So 95% of the places even related to Ravana is to the north of Narmada. Only 5% location to the south. And then we have Bank of Sita, which corroborates that the Godavari is indeed the Tamasa. That when Sita asked, "No, I want to see the Rishimunis I have visited in the Dandakaranya," Rama straightaway sent her to the confluence of Tamasa and Ganga. He didn't send her to Godavari in South India. That is because actual Godavari is the Tamasa river itself. So that clarification you get from the Uttarakhanda. And then Uttarakhanda, we have reached the end of the this one. In the Uttarakhanda, you have Shatrughna's conquest of Mathura. So the ancestor of Sri Krishna, the Mathu's son Levana is conquered by Shatrughna, and Mathura city was established by Shatrughna actually. And then Bharata went to Kekaya, and then from Kekaya he defeated the Gandharvas, but that is basically Gandhara kingdom. And he established his son Taksha in Takshashila and Pushkara in Pushkalavati. Those things happened. And there are certain places mentioned in Uttarakhanda, so we will skip it to reduce our talk, but it is detailed in our book. Thar Desert is mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana. Again, for chronologists, this is a red pill. So they put Ramayana in 12,000 BC, etc. But in the Ramayana, something similar to Rigveda, arid regions are mentioned in Rigveda. Marubhumi is mentioned in Ramayana. So that you cannot take Ramayana into 12,000 BC, etc. He has to be located closer to the desiccation of Saraswati, and that is 1900 BC. So our date of Rama is in 1940 BC, the birth of Rama, and his life ending after 1900 BC. Very well match with the drying up of Saraswati, because Marubhumi is mentioned in Valmiki Ramayana. And then the last, the Ramayana recitation by Lava and Kusha in Naimisharanya, which is very similar to Mahabharata, where the Sautir narrate Mahabharata to Saunaga in Naimisharanya. Same location, Ramayana is narrated by Lava and Kusha to Rama. Very interesting. And then finally we have Ramayana Atlas, where all the cities, old and new, mentioned, that is mapped into a geography, nicely in a geography map. And this is a very bigger map with all the different cities related to Ramayana detailed out. And you can see the more or less 90% of the locations are north to Narmada river. And similarly, the Indus Valley civilization also is exactly matching forget about the eastern side, but the western part of the Indus Valley civilization perfectly match with the Ramayana geography contemporary to Sri Rama. That also up to Narmada and little bit south to the Narmada Indus Valley civilization also you get. So that archaeologically our Ramayana chronology is absolutely corroborating with the geography, and we don't have to worry about not finding evidences, etc. Like when we put Rama in 12,000 BC or 5,000 BC. That is the advantage of this book.
Okay. Yeah. Now go ahead and explain your Mahabharata book.
Okay. So now we will focus on the Mahabharata. Right. So after the book on the rivers of Rigveda and geography of Ramayana, on Rigveda and Ramayana, the third and final book in the chronology, geochronology, that is the geography of Mahabharata. So let us focus on this book. So I will first of all take the presentation and then quickly go through this. So this is the book geography of Mahabharata, which is a very huge. Mahabharata is much huge and big than the Rigveda and Ramayana. Absolute terms, Mahabharata is 4 times bigger than Ramayana and 8 times bigger than the Rigveda. So that much volume we have. And to concise this Mahabharata into 2 volumes itself was a big exercise, because I need to cut short a lot of things and make it very precise and concise. But then the readers are getting at least 4 volume book in 2 volumes with concise data and analysis. So as I mentioned before, the first book is Rivers of Rigveda, second is Geography of Ramayana, and the third book is Geography of Mahabharata, published in 2 volumes. Of course, there is a purpose here. So the primary purpose of connecting the Rigvedic rishis and even pre-Rigvedic kings like Manu, Ikshwaku, Ila. Ila's son Puru was Ayush, Nakusha, Yayati. Yayati's 5 sons, Yadu, Turvasu, then Anu, Drihyu, Puru. All this, and then Puru's descendant Bharata, Bharata's descendants Sudas, and then Ajamida, and then Samvarana, Kuru, Pradeva, Shantanu, then Vijitra Ravi, Dhritarashtra, and then Pandu's son Pandavas, Abhimanyu, Parikshit, Jarameja. So all these people, the mainstream history dismiss them as mythological. And they continue with a certain point saying that Kshamaka onwards, they are historical king. Because Kshamaka have a conflict with Mahapadmananda. Kshama is basically descendant of 28th descendant of Parikshit. So this is a strange situation where your great grandfather is mythological, but your great grandson is historical. So this is the kind of anomaly I wanted to correct. So that is also the primary purpose of the trilogy. So Mahabharata being the last book, I have included certain chapters which focus on the continuity of the Ikshwaku lineage as well as the Kuru lineage. So I have traced out all the descendants of Janamejaya. But in the Mahabharata, you have only 3 generations like Janamejaya. After Janamejaya, there is Shatanega, and after that, Ashwamedha Datta. But the Puranas contain even more continuity of after Ashwamedha Datta, what happened. There is a king called Ashima Chakra, Asime Krishna, and then Nichakra. And Nichakra shifted the capital from Hastinapura to Kaushambi. So that continuity you can see in the Puranas, because Puranas are at least bulk of the information in the Puranas are later to Kurukshetra War. So Puranas are a very good source, despite a lot of magical narratives. They are a very good source for the late kings who lived after Kurukshetra War, all the way up to Mahapadmananda, etc. So Mahapadmananda was one of the disruptive king who destroyed the kind of Aitihasic kingdoms, Kosala and Kuru. Kosala, Kashi, Kuru, Panjala. So all the Aitihasic lineages lead to a hard stop by Mahapadmananda. He created an empire which is more or less Bihar and Uttar Pradesh combined with some other peripheral parts. And after Mahapadmananda, Dhanananda was a kind of a bad king. He completely splurged it, and then because of that, Chandragupta Maurya, with the help of Chanakya, dethroned Dhanananda and become the next king of Magadha. And he established the biggest empire, that is the Mauryan Empire, more bigger than the current state of India. So Mahabharata is very close to our contemporary history. That is another important point. the readers should not. Ramayana is at least 100 years older than Pandavas, and Rigveda is talking about the history before Rama and Rama, that is minimum 1500 to 2000 years history before Rama is covered by Rigveda. Ramayana covers Rama's history, and Mahabharata covers Pandavas' history. And the remaining part from Pandavas' descendant Janamejaya, Shatanika, Ashwamedha, Datta, from that point onwards, the Itihasas are dark. They don't know about what happened. But then Puranas talk about the continuity. 28 kings of Ikshvaku lineage and then of Kuru lineage, everything is in the Puranas. And their complete dethroning or either killing or dethroning of these kings, 28th generation by Mahabharata, and subsequently everything is history. So I don't know how to delve deeper. So that is the importance of Mahabharata, that it is very closer to our own well-recorded history. So that is one important point I want to make about geography of Mahabharata. But then it's like the other books, of course, so many people endorsed it, like Manoj Sinha, then Ajay Chaturvedi, Vishal Agarwal, Dr. Conrad Elst, again, he also gave the foreword to the book. All these things, and it talks about 540 Janapadas. So in our history, we read only this 16 Janapadas, but actually we had 540 Janapadas, more than 100 cities, 230 rivers, hundreds of mountains, 20 or more forests, and 280 holy spots, Tirtha Sthana. I have mentioned instead of temples, we had Tirtha Sthanas. So those, all these things are analyzed in this book. And every aspect, there are maps related to the Digvijay of Pandu, travels of Pandavas, invasion of Panchala, banishment to Maranavada, travel to Ekachakra, travel to Panchala. So every aspect in the life of the Pandavas are traced out in the story format as well as the geographical analysis format in this book. And that is this is why it is a 2-volume book actually. So everything, Arjuna's excel, the Digvijay of Arjuna, Bhima, Nagula, and Sahadeva, where Bhima encounters Brihat, the descendant of Kusha. So Ikshvaku lineage have a conflict with the Pandavas in the Digvijaya of Bhima. Then Sahadeva went to south, where he meet with Vibhishana. Again, a continuity from Valmiki Ramayana in the Mahabharata. All these things. Then they travel into the forest. The pilgrimage circuit of Yudhishthira, where around 280 Tirtha Sthanas he covers. Now, Arjuna's travel into Devaloka. So it looked like a mythical, but when I looked at it geographically, it is very much feasible. They were traveling into Vishtaba, that is the name of Tibet. Elevated terrain. Elevated terrain is considered as Devaloka. And Yudhishthira's ascend, Pandavas travel to Malsya territory, Krishna's peace mission, Balrama's pilgrimage, Ashwamedha travels of Arjuna, and the final travel of the Pandavas. Then the travel narrative, because within the Ramayana, Mahabharata, there is a chapter, Ramayana of 18 chapters. So 18 adhyayas, it's almost as big as this Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita also 18 chapter, Ramayana is 18 chapter within the Mahabharata. So I have again done the geography analysis of Sri Rama inside the Mahabharata, and Nala Damayanti and Satyavan Savitri geographical analysis. And so many other unfamiliar small travel narratives in Shanti Parava, etc. So this is why in the crux, so I already know this philosophy and magical narrative and factual data, 3 components inside the Itihasas, applicable to Ramayana, applicable to Mahabharata as well. And the problem of the lineage, there are only 44 generations from Manu to Parikshit. You cannot stretch it the chronology like a rubber band to 12,000 years, etc. because there are only 44 generations. And this will all, if you make 1793 BC as the Kurukshetra war date, you have to end up dating Manu in around 3500 BC. But of adding some buffers because there will be some missing king, etc., 4000 BC, etc., is the correct date. But people are not satisfied, and so they put it 12,000 BC and 100,000 BC, etc. Similarly, the other the future side. So Parikshit up to the Kshamaka, 28th generation king, who are more or less contemporary to Mahapadmananda, only 28th generation. So you cannot stretch there also. So people who are dating Kurukshetra war in 556 BC, they are making the nonsense of pushing the Mahapadmananda to early Harappan period. Because you have to maintain the chronology gap of 1,500 years, maximum 1,500 years between Parikshit and Mahapadmananda. So nobody can excuse. So anybody putting the Kurukshetra war in random locations like 556 BC have to answer. They don't have any answer because they just throw it in 556 BC and then keep quiet. So we are actually not doing that. So we are more responsible, and so because of the chronological connections, limited number of lineage generations, so we are very much responsible for that. And more or less the kind of positioning of the Kuru lineage kings in Rigveda, Yajurveda, Atharvaveda, and then Mahabharata and Puranas gives you the chronological positioning of these texts. Some of the kind of late Puranas going in edit mode up to 12th century. Some other Puranas talks about Islamic rule and British rule, even mentioning Queen Victoria in Bhavishya Purana. So Puranas are edited as late as 1900 CE. We were not covered by Puranas only for 120 years. That alone is not covered under Puranas. And then the triple expansion of the geography from Rigvedic to Ramayana to Mahabharata to later to Kurukshetra. So you can see the three stage of expansion of the geography again here. And here is a kind of analysis. One chapter I have dedicated to the analysis of the Kurukshetra war dates. So this shows that the 556 and BC dates are completely inappropriate. And there are problems for the dates in 3000 BC range, which are like large number of dates in 3000 BC. So this is because they are very close to the traditional dating of the Kurukshetra war, Kali Yuga based dating. But unfortunately, they have got a lot of technological problems. That one is the spooked wheel war chariots, war horses. So they are prominent period. They were dominant in the warfare between 500 BC to 240 2400 BC. So they are not there before this period, and after that period, chariot become a liability. The chariot will get easily destroyed. So chariot were only used for ceremonial purpose after 500 BC. And before 2400 BC, chariots were not at all discovered. So people who are dating Kurukshetra or etc. in 3000 BC are more or less talking like Mahatma Gandhi used mobile phones. So we know that it's a very absurd statement. Mahatma Gandhi cannot use mobile phone because mobile phones were not discovered when Mahatma Gandhi was alive. So similarly, we can say 3000 BC, 4000 BC, chariots were not discovered. And 556 in BC, don't even think about it. So that is the situation. Then war elephants, again, that is what a history between 200 to 2000 BC. So invention happened around 2000 BC, and after 200 BC, any army knows how to scare an elephant. So then elephant becomes a liability in a warfare, because then they were used for ceremonial purpose in temples. Now in Kerala, now you can see elephants are used for all the ceremony purpose, but they are not used in warfare after 200 BC. So this is the window, and then there is a Kartika autumn connection established by Ashok Bhatnagar. This is an astronomical date. Everybody watch based on astronomy. Use astronomy for dating Kurukshetra war. But there is a law inside astronomy which prohibits dating Kurukshetra war before 2250 BC and later to 1280 BC. So astronomy gives a limit here. So considering all those limits, only these 4 or 5 dates are healthy dates for Kurukshetra war. R.N. Iyengar, and then Ramamurthy, Ashok Bhatnagar, and Mohan Gupta. So Sarkar, there is one more date, 1298 BC, which we can consider. But these are the only 4 or 5 dates, out of which we have a 1700 to 1800 BC archaeological window to Kurukshetra war by Sanjay Manjul. And so within that only one date falls, that is a 1793 BC date of Ashok Bhatnagar. That is why we have taken Ashok Bhatnagar date of Kurukshetra war as the sheet anchor for all our books, because this is, if you ask, can we change the date? Of course, in future, if there is more information. As of 2025, we have, this is the best date. That is only we can use in a book, which is authored between 2020 and 2025. Now, the remaining part, basically, exactly like how happy Ramayana. Every episode in the Mahabharata, I have a representative in geography. So this is a kind of representation of initials where that Jeremiah had a fight with people of Takshashila and annexed it. And there was a kind of Samanta Panchaga, there was some yajna going on, and then Naimisharanya, the rishis were assembled. So all these things, then this Sauti, the person who is narrating Mahabharata, goes to Naimisharanya, and then the Mahabharata starts. So those, then Janamejya's lifetime, the kind of Panchala, Paushya kingdom, Kekaya, Gandhara, these are all mentioned in the Janamejya's lifetime. That this map is for Janamejya, and then this is map is for Uparijaja Vasu, who is an ancestor of Satyavati. the grandmother of that lineage, the Bhishma's stepmother, and Vyasa's mother, Satyavati. So her ancestry is traced to Uparichira Vasu, who was contemporary to Dasharatha, which I have discovered. So that Chedi, that this map is for Uparichira Vasu. And then you have similar maps, the Samvarana, that is power, also nicknamed as Paurava, who is mentioned in Rigveda as Puru of scornful speech. After the failure in Dasharajam battle, he is going to the Sarayu region, all these things. And return of Kuru back to Kurukshetra and renaming it as Kurukshetra and Kurujangala, all these things. Then Pandus, this map is for Pandu, the Pandu Digvijaya. So there Ayodhya is missing here because in Ramayana ends with Sarayu river or flooding over Ayodhya, and Ayodhya got destroyed. And Bharata and Rama, Lakshmana all got immersed into the that Sarayu river, even including all the people in the Ayodhya. That is the last sarga where they say Jala Samadhi of Rama and all the citizens of Ayodhya. Basically, it is flooding of the Ayodhya. So that is why after Rama, the Ayodhya was missing, and Lava and Kusha ruled from other cities, Sravasti and Kushavati. So they didn't inherit Ayodhya because Ayodhya is destroyed. And same continuity we can see in the Pandu Digvijaya. Ayodhya is not mentioned, but other kingdoms are mentioned. And then this is from here onwards. Okay, this is Pandu's Vanavasa going to Shatasringa, etc. From here onwards, you can get some other Karna as a baby in a casket traveling from Ashwa, Charmanavadi, Yamuna, Ganga. So this is a poetic hyperbole because actually nobody can send a child like this. So basically, there is something other happened where Adhiratha came and he was staying in this capital of Kundi Janapada, and he took that abandoned baby and went to Hastinapura. And this is the Pandava Janmasthan, the place where these Pandavas are born. And very interestingly, Hanuman was doing tapas in the close by near to Badrinath. So this is we will see later in the Bhima Hanuman conversation also. So this is the place where the Shatasringa is known as Shadopant today. Shatasringa mountains are known as Shadopant. And then this is like the post. This map is for this Drona's. After Drona's education with Drona, the Pandavas attacked the Ahitchatra and dethroned Drupada from there. And Drupada went to Kampil and started ruling from there. Ahitchatra went to Drona's son Ashwathama. And interestingly, some river names like Hidimba, the river name Hidimba, you can see where the Hidimba Rakshasa, all those them were there in this region. And this is basically the travel of the Pandavas from Varanavata. After they vanished to Varanavata, they were burnt. They were attempted to be killed.
20 minutes. Right.
Okay. So from there, they reached Eka Chakra, etc. So every event in the life of Pandavas are represented as maps here. Their travel for marrying Panchali to Kampilya from Eka Chakra. All these things you can see. They're not Khandava Prastha. Their this travel to Indraprastha, all these things. And from Krishna's travel from the Dwaravati to Mathura. So every information. In Dwaraka also we have very important discovery. Dwaraka is basically the Tholavira island, which is on the mouth of the river Saraswati, which is how it is described. This Dwaraka is explained in the Harivamsha and the Mahabharata as a city very close to the mouth of Saraswati in an island. So that island, the only Tholavira qualifies for that, not the other city which is here, very far away from the Saraswati river mouth. And another discovery is that the city of Dwaraka, whatever dimensions that Krishna mentioned to Yudhishthira, perfectly matches with the inner city of the today's Dholavira excavation site. And here, actually, the Pandavas were going to Magadha to kill Jarasandha. All this information. And this is the Digvijaya, Arjuna's Digvijaya into the Uttara Kuluda and Dakshina Kuluda. The Kuluda and Uttara Kuluda, they are Kulu Manali basically. Kulu Manali called Uttara Kuluda and Dakshina Kuluda, etc. And then there's other travels of Arjuna. He's traveling to the Kashmir and Leh. Leh is known as Loha. All these are mentioned here. And he reaches the Manasa Saras, etc. And similarly, the Bhima's Digvijaya, where Ayodhya is also included, where he defeated a king called Dirga Prajna, who re-established Ayodhya, which was missing during the lifetime of Bhishma. I mean, during the youthful days of Bhishma and Pandu. But when Bhima was youthful, it was again re-established. So those things. So we can see Digvijaya's Arjuna's travel, pilgrimage travel and marrying of Chitrangada and Ulupi. All these things you can see. And Mayasabha establishment, etc. And Nakula's like westward this Digvijayas, all these things you can see. Then Sahadeva's travel and he meeting Vibhishana at Lanka. All these things you can see here. And their now this Pandavas travel to Kamyagavana and then go to Manasa Saras. This is actually the Rama's geography within the Mahabharata. And okay, this is the Lava, this Nalada Mayandi's geography, that how she travels, and she actually traveled through Dandakaranya, where Sita lived. So again, that two Nari's lifetime getting mixed up. All these very strange, very kind of rare corroborations between Nalada Mayandi's story and Valmiki Ramana. All these are actually mentioned in this book. And this is the pilgrimage circuit which of Yudhishthira, which ends at Dravida, very close to Godavari Delta. So this time in Mahabharata, Godavari is the proper Godavari. So there is that river name got shifted by the time of Pandavas. And then how he returned, passing through Dwaraka, meeting Krishna, he returned back. And then finally he goes to this northern part of the Haryana and goes to Kashmir for a little for some time. And he is again going back to the Badari, where Hanuman and Bhima encounters. And Hanuman very tactically prevent Bhima from traveling to this path, because this path will lead Bhima to his birthplace. So for some reason, Hanuman don't want Bhima to go there. And then Hanuman narrates about Rama and Ramayana. All these things happen here. This is the birthplace of the Pandavas in the satellite map, and how they goes to the Kubera's territory. So Vaishravana Kubera's territory, they live for 5 years in this entire Manasaras Kailas enigmatic region. So this is completely intensive with maps that you can see. This is Satyavan Savitri story in the narrated in a geographical map. And this is the Ramayana geography, which is embedded within the Mahabharata, very well corroborated, etc. And this is war preparations that is happening. The Salva Matsya war, the war between Matsyas, all this, the Trigarta Matsya war, all these are very well represented. And you can see the peace mission of Krishna from Upaplavya to Hastinapura. So, and this is like Sanjaya's geographical, there is a Bhumi Parva in Mahabharata, where the entire geography of the world, the entire world is described in the geography. The different regions in the Eurasia are described as Varshas. And it mentioned Bharata Varsha as a bow-shaped and Airavata Varsha again bow-shaped. Airavata Varsha is basically Siberia. So then Ilavarta Varsha is another kind of a geographical paradigm explained. So it's a highly intensive in terms of geography of Mahabharata book is highly intensive in terms of a lot of insights into geography and chronology. It also solves the chronological. The last point of it is that it solves the chronological problems, because the age of the people participated in the Kurukshetra war, because the direct reference in the Mahabharata Kurukshetra war that Drona is 85 years old when the Kurukshetra war happened. So this settled down all the confusion and exaggeration about Bhishma being 180 years of old, Pandavas being 80 years of old. When Drona himself is 85 years old, Pandavas cannot be 80 years old. So these are all because of the wrong calculation. So I got the correct calculation that Pandavas were in their 40s when the Kurukshetra war happened, and Drona was 85. And between Drona and Bhishma, there is cannot be a gap of more than 10 or 20 years, because Bhishma and Drona were more or less mentioned as brother, elder brother, younger brother kind of a feel we get. So with the Drona's age as 95, I have located Bhishma's age between 95 to 105 years. So these are all reasonable. Of course, there is a question how he maintains the health in that such old age. But then he was doing a lot of things like brahmacharya and all. So that should be okay. So with that, I conclude the talk on the Mahabharata geography, because there is so much of content. So maybe it might have 30 minutes in duration, but this is how we can confine it.